Perhaps for the first time after the end of Cold War, the world is witnessing with bated breath the specter of the dominant status quo world power and the resurgent world power, talking about cooperation in energy, diplomacy, finance.
America wants a big economic competition with the world, especially China. Global policeman role of US is on the retreat.
What, in your view, is at stake in terms of Ukraine peace talks?
I think it's clear to Europe and Ukrainians, at least by Mr. Trump, that you are on your own.
It seems, thanks to these talks, Mr. Putin is being offered in plate what he fought for 3 long years.
Most of them he has achieved.
That the US expects Ukraine to pay back for the military assistance that it has received.
Ukrainians are much more angry than anybody else. It's not just Zelensky.
How Europe is reacting to Trump 2.0. There are recent reports that the US is considering reducing its own military presence in Europe. France and Britain have also discussed about the idea of a European security arrangement minus the US.
That's an important development because the way US has dished Europeans, they would have to create their own security framework.
The South Asian region. And we've been discussing Afghanistan, but the last few days and weeks have witnessed some very rapid and major developments.
Tensions within the Afghan Taliban governments are rising by the day. It's not the matter of if, but when Afghanistan implodes.
There's, like you pointed out, a revival of not just regional but global terrorist organizations returning to Afghanistan.
Groups like TTP that have been using weapons left by Americans after their withdrawal. They are even partnering with other terrorist groups in Balochistan.
Anything significant on the political front in Pakistan?
A political party by the name of PTI is fast losing its currency.
The letters which PTI has written to US Congress and the letter the founder of PTI has written to Pakistan's army chief have not worked?
Well, the so-called letters to army chief.
Why are you calling them so-called?
Because it's not a letter. It's just a propaganda statement.
Viewers, very warm welcome to another episode of this program, The Weekend. I am Muhammad Ali.
And I am Murtaza Solangi.
Solangi Sahab, this week has been no less eventful than the previous ones. And I think this gives us a good opportunity to share what's going on around the world, this region, and also in this country as well. Let's begin by discussing what Mr. Trump was up to this week. And, shock and behold, perhaps for the first time after the end of Cold War, the world is witnessing with bated breath the specter of the dominant status quo world power and the resurgent world power, talking about cooperation in energy, diplomacy, finance, and that has made the NATO alliance somewhat worried, and the European Union really on their own. What's your take on that? And recently, the Foreign Minister of Russia, Mr. Lavrov, met his American counterpart in Saudi Arabia, of all the places. What's going on?
Well, we are living in interesting times
Indeed.
because after over 7 decades, there was a global order created after Second World War with US playing a major role. Then there was Soviet Union, and then there were other parts. But you had created some kind of order, and United Nations and Security Council and all that. It's all crumbling because US under Trump has announced to withdraw from that leading role, mainly confining itself to Western Hemisphere, just as was said in Monroe Doctrine. But the isolation policies of Mr. Trump are on full display. So you are seeing that somehow US is like pulling out of NATO, is not taking the military and financial responsibility of maintaining that military alliance. And the open brouhaha between Zelensky and Trump, the exchange of hot words. So it's really a new situation. It's clear that under Trump, America wants a big economic competition with the world, especially China. And for that, they want to shed all the burden of maintaining the global order that they used to have through NGOs and USAID and all. Everything is in the packing mode. That doesn't mean that they would finish the military muscle of United States. They will maintain whatever they need, and they might even develop new weapons. But besides that, that global policeman role of US is on the retreat. And the way they are, handling Ukrainian crisis is basically an about turn.
So what, in your view, is at stake in terms of Ukraine peace talks?
I think it's clear to Europe and Ukrainians, at least by Mr. Trump, that you are on your own. You better cut a deal with Putin. Whatever he wants, just bring this conflict to an end.
Even if it takes ceding occupied territory.
Even if it means conceding territory, even if it means that we would not enter into any kind of military alliance with Europe or America or NATO, and you would just be a vessel on the fringes of Russian Federation, and this would not end there. It would extend to other Baltic states as well.
So if I were to look at these peace talks which took place in Saudi Arabia, from a Russian perspective, the four key interests or war objectives that Mr. Putin desired when he put thousands of his armed men in the harm's way were a regime change in Ukraine, ensuring that Ukraine does not join NATO and remains a buffer state. There is a reduction of Western hard power on the borders of Russia. And also that Ukraine does not pose a military threat to Russia. It seems, thanks to these talks, Mr. Putin is being offered in plate what he fought for 3 long years.
Most of them he has achieved, courtesy Trump 2.0, but there is one more element of success. If you remember, after the invasion of parts of Ukraine, Russian Federation had become a pariah state, isolated from the global order. With this new thaw between US and Russian Federation, Mr. Putin would also come out of that isolation, actually has come out of it.
I completely agree with you. And I think in these recent first round of historic talks between Moscow and Washington in Saudi Arabia, Ukraine was not the only subject of interest. Very interestingly, the US and Russian foreign ministers discussed energy cooperation in the polar region. They discussed reviving and resuming the banking channels, the credit cards, access to Russia, and also reviving the diplomatic channels. So it seems that the Ukraine peace talks have allowed Moscow to regain everything which Mr. Biden wanted to deprive and deny Mr. Putin.
Indeed. I was reading an article that gave a resemblance of these Riyadh talks, just like after Second World War, that Yalta conference where the president of US and Churchill and Stalin were dividing the world. Okay, this is your area of influence. This is your area of influence. So it's just like dividing the war booties. Indeed. After this event is over.
But I want your brief comment on the GCC plus talks as well, because on one side it is very clear that MBS has read and understood Mr. Trump very well. He has transformed, Mr. Trump's disruptive global policies into great strategic opportunities for Saudi Arabia. He has offered $600 billion investment in the US. Mr. Trump addressed a forum only yesterday in which there was a joint consideration of over $100 billion Saudi investment in AI projects sponsored by Aramco. And basically, Riyadh has emerged as a peace broker at the global level.
Indeed. Besides this, there is an existential issue, not just with Palestinians, but with Arab states around Israel, starting with Jordan and Egypt, and I would say even Saudi Arabia. That's why, if you remember when Trump announced that, okay, we will just take over Gaza and we would rebuild it, and a great Riviera of sort, 25 miles long. The first response came from Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the middle of the night that, no, we would not accept this. So Friday, today, as we record this podcast, there was a meeting in Riyadh, GCC, plus Jordan and Egypt, along with led by Saudi Arabia. Mainly, they are discussing to give an alternate plan to Americans, that short of displacement of 2+ million Palestinians, let's give some development plan of rebuilding Gaza in 3 to 5 years, where we would address your concerns. The concerns of Israel and US are no control of Hamas over Gaza, to give a nominal control to PLO, but create a technocratic sort of government in Gaza, disarm Hamas, and have then a big conference of reconstruction.
But so I want your comments on two very interesting and relevant developments regarding this GCC Plus conference. One, that Mr. Zelensky, after being disappointed by the US security commitments decline, met President Erdogan, and he also visited UAE.
Yes.
What do you think UAE and Turkey have to offer, which the US has denied Mr. Zelensky?
Well, he was in UAE. He was in the vicinity to go to Riyadh. He was originally scheduled to go to Riyadh on Wednesday. But after the mood of Americans and what they said on the resolution of Ukraine by bypassing Ukraine altogether, he almost boycotted and went back. So he's an angry man. Turkey, he wants to have some kind of lifeline. Turkey is a major power in the region, but his future and the future of the very country he represents is in serious doldrums.
I think two more challenges that Mr. Zelensky faces are his own political future, because it was very interesting to hear Mr. Trump question his popularity and legitimacy, and the issue of elections being held as part of the peace package and plan is very interesting. But second and more interesting aspect is that the US expects Ukraine to pay back for the military assistance that it has received in terms of exceptional access and sharing of the rare earth materials. And it seems that Mr. Zelensky was not too keen on that, which led to a greater pressure on him to return to public to seek his vote of confidence.
There's huge anger in Ukraine. It's not just Zelensky who's angry.
But it is spilling over in Europe as well.
Yes. Well, Ukrainians are much more angry than anybody else. It's not just Zelensky. Zelensky's approval rating is above Trump, 57%. Okay. Trump's ratings have gone down, actually. So there may be regime change at some point, but whatever the government comes in would have to resonate with the mood of the Ukrainian people, and that's not pro-American. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And on that note, let's briefly comment on how Europe is reacting to Trump 2.0, because it seems that Paris hosted a large number of European countries who share a concern that the US security commitment against Russia is no longer as substantive or as strong. There are recent reports that the US is considering reducing its own military presence in Europe. And the defense companies of Europe, their stocks have skyrocketed in the hope and anticipation that instead of buying American weapons, they'll receive orders for European rearmament.
Correct.
And Germany, France, and Britain have also discussed about the idea of a European security arrangement minus the US.
That's an important development, because the way US has dished Europeans, they would have to create their own security framework, not only in the field of armaments and weapons, but I would not be surprised and shocked that they may come up with some kind of security arrangements with the powerful militaries of the global south. If Russia can bring in uh, the soldiers of North Korea and they can die in Ukraine. Then, when you have a crisis, then every country has to think about themselves. So, if Europe cannot rely on American hardware and foods on the ground, they would have to come up with some kind of security solution, including reconfiguring their relationship with Russian Federation and China.
And that seems that the world order that was centered around US supremacy, as one writer recently wrote in Hindustan Times, has been replaced under Trump administration by US policy of extracting maximum benefits from its allies and partners rather than offering US soft power and support. So that is something which is a paradigm shift in the US statecraft and really shocked partners and allies alike. But let's move to the South Asian region, and we've been discussing Afghanistan for quite a few years now. But the last few days and weeks have witnessed some very rapid and major developments. Would you like to share your insight on that?
Well, I would just add that the tensions within the Afghan Taliban governments are rising by the day. Some Afghan Taliban leaders, some of them a bit moderate, who advocated women education, they have gone out of Afghanistan. Some moved to UAE, some to Qatar, and there are no signs they are coming back. And their criticism of Mullah Habibatullah is gaining momentum. At the same time, the conflict between the Haqqani group and the Kandahari group headed by Habibatullah, that's also on the rise. Other groups, the Farmer Northern Alliance or National Resistance Front, NRF, and other diaspora groups, they just had a conference in Vienna and they have come up with a communique, a joint statement condemning Afghan Taliban. So it's not the matter of if, but when Afghanistan implodes. We are already facing the brunt after August 15, 2021 in the shape of emergence of TTP supported by Afghan Taliban government. I think it's about time that the neighbors of Afghanistan have to sit together and discuss the fallout of the fresh episode of instability in Afghanistan, especially at a time when US has declared that they would not be doling out millions of dollars hard cash every week to Afghan Taliban government. That's supporting other terror groups, including Al-Qaeda, including the groups targeting China and the countries of Central Asia and Al-Qaeda. So this has a serious implications for the region. I think it's about time that Pakistan takes a lead, and there are forums available, but Pakistan is in very good position to talk to China, Russia, Central Asian republics, and Iran to figure out how to address this imploding situation in Afghanistan.
I think I agree with you that the ominous political and security environment of Afghanistan, however, translates into diplomatic and strategic opportunities and relevance for Pakistan. I think there are 5 trends which are very clear. A weakening political setup of the Kabul administration. There is growing infighting and political struggle for power. There is continued denial of diplomatic recognition and support. There is fracturing of power structure, different individuals going to different countries, not coming back and openly criticizing the ideological leadership. And fourthly, there's, like you pointed out, a revival of not just regional but global terrorist organizations returning to Afghanistan. And fifth and foremost, Trump administration considering terrorism again as the dominant threat to US national security, far more than great power competition,
Correct.
which Biden preferred over fighting and contesting the terrorist organizations. And I reinforce what Tulsi Gabal, the recently appointed director of US National Intelligence, said, who has served in the US military for 23 years. And she said that, if the things are like this, then the US might have to return to Afghanistan one day.
That makes it more important for Pakistan and the regional countries to think it over, because this may spill over. I'm sure you are aware of the fact that groups like TTP that have been using weapons left by Americans after their withdrawal, they are even partnering with other terrorist groups in Balochistan.
Indeed.
And they are somehow helping those elements in Balochistan who use propaganda against all development schemes, no matter who invests in Balochistan. China is not welcome, Saudi Arabia is not welcome, Pakistan is not welcome, no country is welcome. They just want a state of despondency in Balochistan to force Baloch young people to extreme actions.
We have discussed a number of times and heard what China have been offering Pakistan in general, but Balochistan in particular in terms of investment opportunities. You mentioned Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Can you share some facts for the benefit of our viewers? What is it exactly that the Saudis have offered the Balochis?
What they have offered is buying 10% and then 5% more stakes in this copper and gold mining project. Reko project. And they are offering almost over $500 million.
540 million.
Yes. Into this mining operations. And eventually, it would add at least $2 billion every year into Pakistan's kitty. And the arrangement that has been made is the Balochistan government and the federal government will have equal share, 25% at par. Besides, federal government gives hundreds of billions of rupees every year in NFC to Balochistan, but this would be an additional revenue. And Saudi Arabia is also planning, Aramco is planning $10 billion oil refinery projects in Balochistan. They would be processing around 300,000 barrels of crude oil per day. So these are great opportunities, but those elements who are inspired by hostile elements, they continue, maligning this and trying to mislead the young people of Balochistan.
Thank you for sharing these very valuable facts and information. Anything significant on the political front in Pakistan?
I think a political party by the name of PTI is fast losing its currency. It was also manifested in one of the recent polls that their ratings are going down. But more than that, all their efforts, even the recent efforts of having a big protest on February 8th, on the eve of first year of elections, miserable failure, even in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They tried to use elements of judiciary to give extraordinary relief to Mr. Khan and his party. The way you have seen changes in Supreme Court and Islamabad High Court, there is no hope for those dreams that they have been multiplying in
So
evening
the
vlogs.
letters which PTI has written to US Congress
Yeah.
and the letter the founder of PTI has written to Pakistan's army chief have not worked?
Well, the so-called letters to army chief,
Why are you calling them so-called?
because it's not a letter, it's just a propaganda statement,
Really?
put on Twitter to basically fan anti-army, anti-establishment, anti-army leadership propaganda. If you look at the language, that's the basic objective, is to fan that continued propaganda that they have been doing. But when it comes to things on the ground, I'm sure you know they tried to arrange a big demonstration in UK on the eve of the presence of army chief in UK. Well, out of 1.5 million Pakistanis living in UK, they did not even have 1,500. According to some estimates, they were like 40 to 50 people, or at the max 200 people.
And not just regarding the diaspora, the intense effort by PTI to lobby and influence the government in Whitehall or Beltway does not seem to work, because Pakistan's army chief received a very warm welcome. He received a guard of honor, and he was given a high-level briefing on the modernization plan of the Royal Army. I don't think if the British are supporting PTI would like to, confide with Pakistan's army chief about their own military modernization plans.
Given the weaknesses Europe faces today, especially in terms of security, and Europe includes UK, they would actually like to meet and rub shoulders with the heads of powerful military, rather than somebody who does propaganda on social media.
I think that's a very insightful thought to end our program today. Thank you. Viewers, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Don't forget to share your views, comments, and feedback, and keep watching this program. Thank you so much.